Yo, 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 what up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Brothers in Arms, a new way for men to talk. I am your host, comedian Edgar Rivera, and I'm joined today, of course, by my brothers, comedian Eric Nieves and Dr. Dan Ratner. What's happening, brothers?
Great to see you, Edgar.
Well, yeah, good to see you. Good to see you, Doc. How are you?
I'm doing great. As we noted before this show, I've had maybe 10 minutes break somewhere in there today. Today was completely insane, which is great for our theme today. I'm not even going to bring it up. That's just a little teaser.
Yeah, good. Well, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad that this is going to be the best hour of the whole day coming up. What about you, Eric?
Hoping a portion of that time of that 10 minutes was in the restroom. Otherwise, this is going to be a show about bladder infections and other things. So I hope at least a small portion of that was somewhere in between that. I'm doing good, I'm worried about Dr. Dan.
Eric cares about your bowel movements and your.
Well, listen, I listen. I mean, when you say 10 minutes, I mean, you got to squeeze something out during that time.
Full disclosure: the 10 minutes does not factor in bathroom time, so I did actually have more.
Okay. I just want to be clear because
self-care update.
Yeah, because forcing it is also bad. If you're trying to force the missile, the silo can become damaged. So you got to be careful. Trying to fire off missiles too early. Edgar, how you doing, my man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Just like you guys, man. Having one of those days, but I'm glad to be here. I'm glad that I always say, man, I always stress this right before the show, like a few hours before. I was like, I gotta set up everything, and I go crazy. And then once we get on, it's like a whole different ballpark. And I hope to put a smile on Eric's face because he looks very serious.
Well, no, listen, I'm really concerned about Dan's bladder. I'm actually still getting over last week, the last episode, last show about emotional intelligence, Yes. I actually been thinking about the subject even a couple of days after doing the show because it was so complex. I felt like we only touched the tip of the iceberg on that.
Nice, yeah. Well, I can't wait to hear more about it because I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm still trying to I was at the end of that episode, I was like, am I the only one in this group that does not know what emotional intelligence is? But apparently I'm very emotionally intelligent, but I'm but I don't know it. And it was crazy. As we were doing the podcast, I was like I'm hearing you talk and I'm like, oh my God, I'm trying to put everything together. And that same night after we go ahead,
this is one of the things that I loved about last week and about our podcast just in general is a lot of times we can bring up a topic and we even think we know what we're going to say, but a lot of times all three of us may have a different understanding of what that is, and then we even have different understandings within our own understanding. So by the time we start talking about it, it could go in any direction. We could probably do an entire season on emotional intelligence if we really wanted to.
Interesting. That's very interesting.
Challenge not accepted.
No, not at all.
No.
Because you know what my problem is I'm hearing you guys, right? So my ADD is so really bad that I'm hearing you talk, Dr. Dan, and I'm like, okay, I boom, I put a question popped up, and then Erica say something, and then by the time it's my turn to talk, now I'm clueless. Now I'm I don't even know what to say anymore, But it was crazy.
No, I thought the best story though is what you told me with the conversation you had with Juliana after when you brought it up. That was hilarious.
Tell the story.
That night after we did the podcast, I started thinking about it and trying to analyze it more. And that night I was walking the dogs with my girl and I said, hey babe, do you think you're emotionally intelligent? And she looked at me, dude, if I cursed her out. She looked at me like her face said fuck you, but she said what? and then I was like, boom, I really don't know it. I really don't even know how to explain it to her. She was like, what do you mean? I'm emotional and intelligent? I was like, I don't know. Wait for the podcast to come out. Maybe we could pick something up from it because I was so lost, dude. It was crazy. But then it made me realize that I wasn't the only one. So maybe we could recap on this episode again and maybe we touch up some more and get into it. So the people, because I know I'm not the only one. I know you guys are.
I feel bad. We almost ended your relationship prematurely. I apologize to both of you. It was not my intention.
No, because after she said what? Because I said, no, because I think that you are.
Edgar, but the reason that happened, this is the therapist's interpretation, but the reason it happened is you were actually asking a question about what is emotional intelligence, and you just wanted to have a conversation with her, and you did it in a way that could be totally friendly and normal, but she, I think, heard it as, are you asking if you're not sure that I'm emotionally intelligent? That's why she was like, what?
I think just like me, she has no clue.
Well, that could be, but I think if you ask somebody, do you think you are intelligent, with whatever adjective that comes before it, they're like, are you actually asking me that? What's happening here?
Like if I asked you, Edgar, are you deli intelligent?
Yeah, yes.
Meaning, do you make intelligent choices when you go to the deli? You would say, yes, I am quite deli intelligent, right? Because that you would automatically, or you'd be mad, like, how could you say I'm not intelligent at the deli? So,
but what if they ask you, are you comedy intelligent? You'd be like, what?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
See, you'd be insulted.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a like, real good one right there. That one put me to think. I'm
okay,
like, oh.
Listen. As a point of emotional intelligence, don't ask a woman if they think they are emotionally intelligent.
Take it from me, because
you could ask,
mine's is
do
cool.
You think I'm emotionally intelligent? That's a different question.
Ask them, have you heard of it? Have you heard of it?
Have you? See,
what I would say.
Just steer clear of the personal.
Yeah. Don't accuse no one like I did. The funny thing is that after she looked at me like that, and I realized that we were both clueless, I said, "Well, I am. According to Dr. Dan and Eric, I'm very emotional intelligent." And that was my way out of this conversation. I said, "All right, let's keep it going. Let's keep it going." But it was actually a great episode, man. I had fun. I had a lot of fun. You know, I did learn a lot from it. And it felt like little by little we're getting our vibe back. You know, which is great.
Okay, the only thing I'll say to maybe correct that is I feel like we fully had our mojo back. Like at least 3 quarters. We were really, to me, it felt like that fun time where, and this is how it felt last season. This really was probably my favorite time during the week. It's just a time where I can just hang out with you guys, talk about things we like. And in the meantime, I think we really hit on some great stuff.
Yeah, true that. Definitely.
And we're going to do it again.
That's right.
That's right.
They can't stop us.
Okay.
What did I say? I meant
he said they can't stop us. Look at Eric's face. I'm just looking at Eric's face here.
But I'm excited. Yeah. I'm looking forward to this this week's topic. Very excited because I think it's something we could all relate to, and you'll actually know what it is, Edgar. So that's
actually so we all agree that we gotta definitely come back and retouch emotional intelligence and do another episode on that and get deep into it, because according to Dan, we could do a whole season of it. So if you guys agree with that, please comment down below and let us know if you want to hear more about emotional intelligence, because we would definitely talk about it. And I am looking forward to this week's topic, yo. So let's introduce it as an old news. Can we do that? Let's bring in that old news segment that we all like. And if you've never watched it, I like Dr. Dan to bring in the old news because it just makes us feel good. So Dr. Dan, take it away.
Here we go. And the reason we do it is because we always talk about this. It doesn't need to be news of today because it's going to be newsworthy later, even if it happened a long time ago. So here we go. It's time for old news, maybe from yesterday. I think I nailed it that time.
Yeah, I think I'll give you a 10 on that one. That was an excellent use of the eyes, Dr. Dan.
He's so confident.
So smoldering and confident. So today, I don't know why I said smoldering. All right, so today we're going to be talking about mental health in the workplace. So that's this is a big topic. It's always been a big topic, mental health in the workplace. But one of the reasons it's even going to be a bigger issue is now the return to the office place for people that have been working from home because of the pandemic. 77% of workers reported that they would be returning to the office at some point or in some fashion in the year 2022. At the same time, 1 in 3 workers that have already returned to the workplace says that the shift back going to the workplace has had a negative impact on their mental health. But I think it's something we need to talk about. I think we also need to talk about the difference between stress and mental health at work, because everyone experiences stress at work. They did a survey. 94% of Americans said that they feel some level of stress at work. I want to meet that 6%. I really do. I don't know what they eat. I want to meet those people. But 94% said that they experience some kind of stress. So I'm not just talking about stress at the workplace. I'm talking about mental health and mental wellness at the workplace. And here's one stat that I found really interesting. And it really says a lot about the status of mental health of people in the workplace. 67% of respondents reported at least one symptom of a mental health condition, up 59% from the year before. Up from 59% from the year before. So we're talking about an 8% increase in people experiencing some symptom of a mental health condition at work. So I really wanted to have a really honest discussion about what we can do to make sure we address our mental health at work, ways to avoid stress so stress doesn't affect our mental health, learn how to manage stress, and don't turn stress into something that it's not. Don't make it a mental health condition if it's something that can be managed through some kind of exercise or, whatever kind of process needs to happen. And I also want to talk about some of the stressful jobs that exist and why people pursue them and why they're so stressful.
These are great topics. I want to say one thing, though, about the COVID experience. I just think this is an interesting slant, and we won't go in this direction this episode, but maybe another episode. A lot of people are saying, and I've even experienced this myself, that there's stress with respect to coming back from COVID just to having social situations. Like, we're so messed up from this. We're not even used to just hanging out in the same room, which is kind of funny because the three of us have never hung out in the same room. Not yet. When we do, we'll be like, "What? I didn't know that you were 5'1".
Probably be clueless. We probably won't even know what to say to each other face to face.
Oh, you have legs.
We can't look at each other's eyes. We'll be like this. Hey, Dr. Dan, how are you?
He looks so
really
different.
Emotionally intelligent.
He really looks so different. He looks much more emotionally intelligent on television.
So I just wanted to put that out there because people are having stress just having interactions now. There's a bit of an adjustment period here, but I think the topic for today is less about that and more just about what is the stress of the workplace like for people? How do they manage it? How do we think about it? And people have been stressed or having mental health related issues created by their jobs for years and years and years, centuries. It goes way back. So let's get into talking about what is this about? I mean, how do you think about, Edgar, how do you think about mental health at work? I mean, what does that even mean to you? How do you think about it?
It could mean so many things, though. It could be.
That's why I asked you. I was just going to put you on the spot.
Yeah, you put me in the spot.
He was like,
you're going to talk.
I basically work.
You're going to talk about all of
stress at work.
He's like, you know what? Why are you asking me? I don't work. Edgar, what do you think about mental health at work? I say, well, the comedy clubs sometimes don't have a bathroom for the comedians, and I'm really upset about this because sometimes I need to use the bathroom, and I got to pay for
how
restaurant.
important I feel about bathroom use. I mean, I've made that very clear since the beginning of this episode.
It's dangerous, right?
Well, yes. I think to answer your question though, I think a lot of mental health from work, it will be like either bullying from your supervisor. That could cause a lot of mental health at work. And I mean, what do you think, Eric? I'm gonna pass the torch right to Eric. What do you think?
I just gave Edgar stress at work.
I know, right?
Like, oh my God, I'm at work right now.
I'm
stressed.
so sorry. I'm
supposed
to help you with this.
I think Edgar just displayed what happens when you deal with unexpected pressure at work, and yes. I think that when you don't see it coming, I think especially now, one of the things I think is contributing even more now so than other things is this whole idea of the Great Resignation. Everybody's quitting their jobs, which is great, and thank God if you have the ability to quit your job, God bless you. But what happens is the people that get left behind at the jobs remaining have to pick up for the slack for everybody that left. So there's extra pressure on workers now that I think we haven't seen in generations. And there is no such thing as a job without stress. First of all, let me just say that in my opinion, I want to meet, like I said, 94% said they experience some level of stress at work. I want to meet that 6%. I want to know exactly what they do. But there's no such thing as a job without stress. There you go. So they're collecting checks, so they're not stressed.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think every job has stress. What worries me is that we don't take care of our mental health enough, and we allow the stresses of work, things that we cannot control, hurt our mental health, and we take those issues wherever we go. It just doesn't stay at work. It affects our mental health, and then we go home, and we have to be with our families, and they kind of deal with the shrapnel of what they've been going through at work.
Okay, but let's open this up. I'm just curious to know what you guys think about this. So Edgar, I won't just throw it to you. It's to you both, or even I'll answer it. But what is stressing us out at work? What is the pressure of work? Let's see if we can get it a little more defined. I know it can go in many different directions, but let's throw out some ideas that we have about what does cause the stress at work.
Work overload.
Okay.
The lack of work of workers that employees that there is now because everybody's hesitant to go back to work.
So you mean too much work for any one
too much
person.
work, probably too much work.
I'm going to throw out another. Too much responsibility, meaning that whatever it is that you're doing, you feel maybe a massive responsibility. Maybe it could be the people that are working under you or the people that you're working for or your clients, whatever it is. The level of responsibility is going to be one thing that determines whether you're feeling stress at work.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's gotten worse with the short staff at places, where companies are shrinking. I think that people have to assume more responsibility, and I also think that uncertainty of the future. There was so a lot of people just literally their jobs that don't exist anymore, jobs that are almost not in existence anymore, as we're changing the whole paradigm of what it means to work, and we're switching to a world where remote jobs exist. So you got people wondering even if their jobs are going to be around or what their futures look like. I know in the healthcare field, you talk about a field that's going to probably take decades to probably recover from the amount of stress that they had to deal with over the last couple of years. And the primary culprit in that was the schedule. When you have no one to cover you, you have to stay. And then there are jobs that if your coverage doesn't show up, you stay. And, that kind of just ongoing work, it wears a person down. So, I guess, and it's not the work that they're actually doing. It's just the need to have to do it and what it takes away from their personal life. They don't have that balance.
You're also hitting on an important point, I think, which is some of the stress of work is the anticipation of stress as well. In other words,
mm-hmm.
people can work for a long period of time knowing, okay, I'm working harder than I want to be working right now, but is there relief coming? Is this sustainable? There's so many elements that create what makes work hard or not. And I'm going to throw out another. A lot of people, I think, feel a pressure, and Eric, you mentioned this, I think, in our production meeting, the pressure to keep up a certain persona. I used to feel that a lot. I actually don't anymore, and we can talk about why, but I used to feel a pressure to keep up the therapist persona. Like if there were signs that I wasn't really calm and collected all the time or something like that. That was going against the persona. I'm sure you guys get it as comedians all the time. That's kind of, I think, what would be some of the stress of like bombing, in a set is like, I'm not keeping up my persona. What do I do here? I'm curious.
Or you could blame the audience and be like, they whack.
It's always the audience's fault. It's them.
Listen, you guys have found a way to resolve your stress. You're in the 6%. That's good.
Well, I'm in the 6% in that part of my, I think the hardest thing for me is, look, as a comedian, there is no workplace stress. You just stress getting work. That's a different type of stress. There is no workplace stress. When you're a comedian, you're surrounded by just a bunch of people that want to laugh and some people that want to pay you to do it. So there's really not a lot of stress there. A sense of competition, yeah.
That's the thing, though. I would think then that makes stress when you're there because you're like, I better perform well so that this happens again.
Yeah.
It just seems to me that would be very stressful.
The stability, Yeah, we're a comedian. Yeah, I mean, you could be making shows. You could do shows. You could do everything. But in a heartbeat, you could lose everything too. So as a comedian, you don't have that stability. You don't have that 8 to 5 just for you guys. But you don't have that regular 8 and 9 to 5 where you work and you got income coming in and you're stable as a comic. When you're an independent contractor, dude, 1 week could be good and then 1 week I could be here like, man, what am I gonna do? So that is a work stress for entertainer as well. For I think
Yeah, and I think there are people who run small businesses. Their stress is somewhat similar to that actually, which is the business going to continue? Is it doing well enough?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I think about it, you could say for almost any job. That's why I totally agree with Eric about like who are these 6%.
I gotta meet him.
There's stress in every job.
There is. There definitely is.
But I mean, look, the number one reason for stress, it's financial, right? Let's be totally frank, right? It's money.
Mm-hmm.
You need money to survive. You need money to pay the bills. And, with everything else being uncertain in the world, the one thing you want to have certain is your job. So, you'll see people give up relationships before they give up a good job, because they know that, they need this just to be able to eat and sleep and survive. So that's why I can't understand how someone can feel no stress at work. I think for me, I always have to remember that I have a day job where being a comedian isn't always appropriate in the workplace, and you have to make sure you have a certain image at work because you're representing a company or an organization or department. I think, the stress could come from you're in a job that you hate. I mean, think about that kind of stress. I mean, at least, whatever kind of insecurities we may have as comedians, Edgar, or whatever unhappiness I may have with my day job, I think as long as people have had some kind of choice in what they're doing for a living, that'll help. But there are people right now that are working jobs that they don't have a choice. It's either this or they're not doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that kind of stress is the type of stress that just can't be talked away, because I can't even imagine just feeling that boxed in just based on, life choices or geography choices or just basically lack of choice. I mean, what do you think about when I mention that kind of stress as far as not having a choice when you have, looking for a job or getting a job?
I think that's some of the worst kind, obviously, because, when people don't have choices, it's incredibly hard. And then they're forced to do typically things that they don't want to do. It's very rare that you're like, don't have choices, but happen to like what you do. That does not usually happen. So my heart goes out to people who are in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
And
they're not happy.
I think it's a huge amount of the population.
So then,
I can see how that could be mental health at work. That could be considered mental health at work, like how not stress, but just the fact that you're doing something that it's not what you want to do, but you still got to do it.
Well, that's why I'm wondering if there's a way to because it is a mass majority of the population, and most people will tell you, I'm doing what I'm doing right now because I got to. How can we teach ourselves as a collective that, this may not be what we've chosen, but to still have love and pride in the choice that we have so that we can get some kind of joy out of it? Because I mean, if we're not going to be able to change the situation, then is there a way that we can change how we feel about it or how we react to it?
I think one key component, and listen, this is not something that may even be possible for certain people, at least not at first. But I think it's really good to build in parts of your personality in the rest of your life. So if you've got a job that you don't love, but you've got a hobby you really love, that's very important to value. From a mental health perspective, I think one of the most important things that a person can do is to just recognize the different parts of themselves and make sure that it doesn't feel like the bulk of who they are is dying from having to do that other stuff. You got to be able to find some outlet for who you are.
Mm-hmm. Yep, you're right. I think do you think it's worse now than it was like maybe 3 years ago before this whole pandemic hit? Do you think it's more mental health at work? Do you think do you think people are stressing more because they have to go back to the office now? Maybe they've been working from home, like Eric, like we talked about this in the production meeting. You said you love going to the office.
I do.
You loved going to the office, but I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people out there right now who got the chance to work from home for the first time, like never got to work from home and then feel like, I'm not ready to go out into the world. I'm not ready to socialize with everyone. I'm not ready to sit in a cubicle next to someone else, So that could cause a lot of stress as well. Like Dr. Dan, you love working from home.
Love it.
So it's two different experiences, but I know a lot of people who are like stressing about this. So you think now after this pandemic it's worse? The mental health at work is becoming worse because of everything that's happening? Dr. Dan, I mean, this is your field, so you probably...
Yeah, well, I would say I'm not sure actually, because here's what I guess I would say about it. A good way to sum it up. it's going to depend on how things align with who you are. I've talked to many people who actually they almost have found relief in the pandemic. And I don't mean to say that they're overall it's good. Of course it's not. And there's a massive amount of stress in it, even for people like that. But for certain people, it aligns better. Homebodies who don't really want to talk to people that much, they're like, oh my God, this is great. We're finding out that all those jobs that you say, well, you can't do it from home. It turns out you can do a lot of things from home. Mm-hmm. So it's getting better for some people in a certain way. I think it's getting significantly worse for others. But I think the main thing that's happening is it's just changing our picture. It's opening the framework to a consideration. I mean, this mass exodus from jobs, it shows it. It shows that people are, and I guess this is where I would say is the area that it's most getting better, is that people are starting to recognize, oh, there are actually other options. I'm going to go for something that's more what I want. I actually think another way that it's getting better is that people are seeing limited time on Earth and thinking about mortality and things like that. That stuff is, in a way, making us better. It's making us consider, what do I really want to do with my time? So when you ask, is it getting better or worse, it's hard for me to say overall, but I do think it's a big mix.
Yeah. But I do agree with you. I think people appreciate more. Now it's like you realize when everything gets taken away, you're like, oh my God, so you appreciate it definitely more.
And I also think that it opened up and we've talked about this in past episodes, and I think it's a recurring thing that the pandemic has forced it. The whole situation has forced us to really look at mental health and take it seriously, and have more open conversations about it, and make it a more important factor in our daily lives. Because one stat that I found very interesting about job applicants, and this is it says 76% of workers would say they consider the mental health benefits as critical when considering new jobs. So here we have almost 80%. Yeah, think about that. So they're already thinking about, hey, you know what? This is important. This is something. And I think it's because we all, it was easy to pretend you were okay in a regular world. And then when the world wasn't regular, everybody really had to look in the mirror. So while I think, like you said, that, there are certain good things, there can be some good out of bad situations, or some changes that could be made that can have a positive impact. And I think workers caring about mental health benefits is important, because if it matters to employees, then it's going to matter to the employers, because then it's going to come up in interviews, and it's going to be part of the when it's going to have to be included in the job description, because now people are like, you know what? It's not just my 401k. It's, do I get counseling if I need it? Can I take a mental health day if I need it? What's your policy on mental health? So I think that's going to shift the paradigm as far as employers, because employees, if it matters to employees, it'll matter to the bosses too, right?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, eventually, there's more awareness to mental health. I notice now I turn the TV on, you hear more and more on it. There's more topics on it. Everyone is talking about it, which I think is what this pandemic did to us, which is great. But yeah, what are the jobs doing? What are the bosses doing? What are the employers doing to help out someone, with mental health?
Well, I gotta admit, during our production meeting, we had a conversation between the three of us. We were like, could we find maybe a small business or a small business owner? And I'm gonna do other stuff in the end, so I just want to throw this out there. I had a hard time finding the small personal story, and I'm wondering if, because of the way news media is disseminated these days, it's really difficult to find the local story that will make a national headline. So, but I was just curious as to but I would say as a whole, and this stat is shocking to me, guys, I was really surprised to find this out. And this is, of course, since the pandemic and to now, 40% of employers with at least 50 employees or more expanded their mental health benefits during the pandemic. So almost half of all businesses with 50 employees or more, invested in mental health, whether it was the employee assistance program, whether it was offering free counseling, whether it was online services. And it wasn't just the smaller companies. Almost every major corporation, from Starbucks to Target, every company has started investing money into the mental health and well-being of their employees. So there is a shift from businesses, but My question is it enough? You know, I mean, what can be done? I mean, you know, maybe do they need to be aware of what services exist? Because if the services are being offered, is every employee that needs it taking advantage of it? Would be my question. Because if it's being offered, maybe they're not taking advantage of it. And I think that could really help with workplace stress if you knew there were services available and you went and acquired them.
I have another question that, you know, it's related, but I think it drives some of the answer to your question. And that is why? Why is this happening? Why are companies actually changing? And the reason I ask that is that I think sometimes companies change because of some kind of societal pressure. Sometimes they change because of legal threats or things like that. Sometimes they change because they get a conscience in a certain way, or sometimes they change because of economic interest where they just see, oh, actually, there's a lot of money in this. And I ask that because I think we need to understand the motivations behind these changes before we can understand how the worker is going to trust it. I just think, like, from my own perspective, and I work for myself, so I'm probably totally out of touch in this way, and I apologize about weighing in areas where I may not know as much, but I do think that in general, people have a hard time trusting if they don't understand why it's happening. And so I just as a consumer myself, just in general, even if I'm not working for anybody, I wonder, why are the changes happening? I hope it's for good reasons, and I still think it's good overall anyway. But I still wonder, why do you guys think it is happening?
Honestly, I think this pandemic has a lot to do with it. You know, I think the pandemic has had a lot to do with it. And I was also thinking about, okay, Eric said that there is services out there. A lot of companies are providing more mental health services to their employees, but do their employees know that service is there? And this show is about men. You know how we are about opening up about, okay, yeah, maybe I do need a psychiatrist. Maybe I do need to talk to someone. So as a man in a workplace, you know that service is provided. You could take that service, but we'll still be stubborn enough because you don't want to be the first one on that service line. So you think that prevents people from taking advantage of the service on what other employees might think of them?
Well, that's part of the reason I kind of asked this why question is I'm just wondering, where are people's headspaces about it? Like, I'm even thinking about the three of us as we talk. This show, especially in the first season, there was a way in which, partly because we did Walking the Walk, we talked about our own personal experiences, and part of the point of the show was to open up about things. So, like, it's interesting because we're having this show, and I haven't even once talked about what's the stress of my work. And in a way, I mean, you guys have talked, you kind of said things in relation to what's the stress of your work, but I think if we're going to get anywhere in this kind of conversation in our society, we have to continue exactly what we've been doing in our show, which is to open up space to talk more personally about what the stress is. Like, it's one thing to talk about the overall structure of what causes stress at work and how do people think about it, but I love when we get personal about it because I think it gives people permission to open up more. So I was thinking about it. Maybe I should do a Walking the Walk about what's hard about being a therapist as an example. There are plenty of things. And I think it's helpful for people when we open up in that way. I'm curious what you guys think about that.
Well, I would love to hear the Walking the Walk if you're interested, but but I understand what you mean about making it personal. I think that's one of the reasons why companies are doing it now. It's because this generation, I believe, is more of a believer in work-life balance. I don't know if you guys would agree with that, but you know, that's kind of the reasons why young people are quitting, because they care about their personal life as much as, if not more than, their work life. So I think that's why there's a shift. I know for me, I would be worried about accessing services if I felt if I felt it wasn't going to be private. As I guess that would be the concern for me. Like that would be what I would be worried about, is how actually confidential is it? I mean, is it something human resources will be aware of? Is that something I want human resources to be aware
Isn't
of?
it really interesting though that like how different that is from earning a salary? Like nobody really talks about like they're not like ashamed to say I would like to earn more money, generally speaking.
Right.
But everybody's like, I'm going to be very careful about talking about a mental health component.
Yeah.
Because and it comes back to what Eric said. It comes down to the financial. If you're going to talk about a vulnerability you have in the workplace that could potentially open you up to maybe we're not going to hire this person, or maybe we're not going to keep this person. Now, listen, there would probably be all kinds of lawsuits if people did actually go through with terminating somebody on those kind of claims. But the fact is, if you do an interview with people, one of the things you are assessing, and I've actually interviewed hundreds of people over the course of my career. I used to interview people all the time when I was working at Fordham's Counseling Center. We were looking for how solid is this person? In a way, we were evaluating mental health, and I feel a little bit weird about that. As a therapist, you kind of have to do that because you're going to be taking care of other people. It's really important that you have a pretty good mental health setup. But at the same time, there's a whole stigma about therapists where people say, oh, I don't know, therapists are weird. They're the most unstable. They actually have tons of problems. And that's not even entirely incorrect, I have to say. I like to think of myself as someone who has really pretty solid mental health. But I'm telling you, inside anybody's head, it is a minefield. And I think we need to get to a place where, and this is where I think we are getting to better places, we're getting to a place where that's kind of more acknowledged. It's not all the way acknowledged where it should be. I'd love to get to a place where there's no stigma attached to it at all.
Mm-hmm. I would love to, I would love that as well. But what happens, okay, so, like Eric said, you got the big companies who are providing the mental health, but what about the small businesses? What about someone like myself who's an independent contractor? I don't have a company who's providing mental health for me as a comedian. I work, so then what about how do we get these people help?
Well, I'm well versed in. There in almost every major city, there is either you dial 311 or there is a website that you could go to and you will be linked to a free health and wellness counselor, no charge. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's someone that you just need to talk to somebody. I did one of the barriers to small businesses, and Dan, this goes what you were talking about earlier about small businesses dealing with stressors very similar to comedians. The small businesses can't afford to provide the healthcare services on top of the salaries of the people that they have under their employ. So they're really they're trapped between a rock and a hard place. They can't afford to enroll in the employee assistance program because that does require some kind of fee annually and some kind of investment. So, unfortunately for people that aren't working for a big company or someone that works independently like Edgar, there is going to be some level of research involved on, and there won't be as much outreach or, that notice of availability that people would have that work in companies. But there is stuff out there. There's always something out there if you look for it. I just think, I think some people in companies, depending on, especially what type of company, I think if you work for a healthcare facility or any organization involved in health and wellness, I don't think there's this stigma of coming forward and saying, I've been getting some help. But if you work as a financial analyst or someone where your job is dependent on a certain level of perfection or preciseness, that, you know what I mean? I would imagine that having others around you being aware that you're dealing with something, it might hurt them professionally, or they might perceive it hurts them professionally.
Well, this is where I feel like our show comes in, because the more we talk about these things, the more we get them out there, the better. That's how society changes. It's not going to change from the employers. It's not even going to change from the economics of things, honestly. That does help change things. But I think the main thing that changes it is the way we talk about it.
Exactly. And us opening up about it. If you ask me, like, I love what I do. You know, so most of my stress that comes in, okay, you know what? When I had a job, when I had a day job, and I also did comedy, the stress was, okay, you know what? I can't travel because now I have to be here 5 days out of the week. So those road gigs are completely out of the picture. So your goal is, okay, you know what? Now that I'm full time, I'm like, okay, now I'm full time comedy. But now I don't have that stability, like I said before, you know. So it's stress because now when you're not getting the shows and you're not picking that stuff up, now I'm like, okay, now I gotta scrub and think about money. So it's like an ever-ending story, at least for me. You know, that's what I deal with. You know, now especially after what happened to me 2 years ago, how everything came to an end, and now I gotta like start back up again. And there's days that I drive myself crazy. There's days that I'll be like, okay, should I just go get a job? You know, should I get a job? And then the other person, the other part of me is like, but what if something happens? You know, what if that break that I've been waiting for happens? What if, you know, I get that call that I've been waiting for? So that's stress, at least for me as a comic, as a comedian, as a self-contracted comedian. That's the daily stress for me. Luckily, I have a job where I could get on stage and I could let out this frustration. You know, I could talk about it. I could make other people laugh, which is great because, like I always say, laughter is the best medicine. But as an entertainer, and I'm pretty sure Eric could vouch for me, and you too, Dr. Dan, you probably feel the same way. When you make people laugh, when you make people happy, when you give people that positive energy, and that's the person giving it, it's the best feeling in the world to me.
Well, and if it makes you feel like you shine, then and you know you're doing what you love, that's a big part of the stress that the people who don't have choices, I think, feel, is they don't have that opportunity. And then there's the stress of the people who do potentially have that opportunity, but there's always opportunity cost. You know, It's like you're saying, well, if I take a job, what if I miss my big chance? And what if you're you know, going after your dreams, but you're not making money, or it doesn't seem to be working out, and then you're like, well, how long should I do it?
Exactly. I guess that was like a little walk in the walk for myself, you know.
It was.
That's what I've been dealing with.
I said I was going to go in and use
it.
Well, comedy's a little different than every other job in that a comedian will show up when they're not scheduled to work.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. A comedian will show up when they're not scheduled to work and then offer to work for free.
Exactly.
There is no other job on the planet, right? Nobody walks into your therapy session, Dan, and goes, listen, man, I'll give this guy a good 10 minutes of therapy real quick, give you a break.
No, it's true.
It's true. No, and I don't just show up to people and say, hey, do you want a session?
Listen, I could do 5 minutes up front with this guy. I think I could solve his disorder in 5, and you could do the other hour on the family. What do you think? Huh? It doesn't work that way. Comedians, though, they'll just show up and, you know.
You're absolutely right. It's like when you meet someone and someone introduces you, hey, this is my friend Eric. He's a comedian. They'll be like, oh, you a comedian? Tell me a joke. Come on, really?
Therapists and comedians share that in common, though. It's like somehow they expect us to do the work right there. Like if you were on a plane and somebody was like, I'm a dentist, and you're like, oh, can you check out my tooth? Nobody does that. But on a plane, I don't tell people that I'm a therapist at the start of the flight. No way.
Because as soon as we land.
I did that with a proctologist on a plane. No, I'm just kidding. God. No, I'm just kidding. It was definitely passenger 57. No, I'm just kidding.
Dr. Dan, you ever feel like talking to someone you meet, and then when they ask you what you do for a living and you tell them that you're a psychiatrist, do you feel like have you ever gotten people like hesitate, like, oh, wait a second?
Yeah.
Have people like pull back, like, oh no.
It was actually one of the main. This might sound crazy, but one of the main stresses of my job when I was a younger therapist, especially doing training, is how much people responded to what I did in a way where I felt almost like profiled. Like they just had expectations of what I was like and what I was going to do, you know. And typically when I would talk to people then, they would either want to open up and tell me everything, or they would look at me like I was a vampire, like someone who's very dangerous to them. Stay away. I don't want to tell you anything. And what I found interestingly is that over time, and this goes back to keeping up that persona, I found that over time it has really helped me to bring my full persona into my persona as a therapist. So I'm not a different person when I'm a therapist than how I am outside. I'm just the same. And that makes things a lot easier for me. But I do want to say one other thing, because mentioning like walking the walk, I wanted to talk about one of the work stresses for me. You know.
Okay, hold on. Before you bring it in, let's introduce it, because we haven't done a walk in the walk
right,
in a
let's
very
do an
long
actual
time.
Well, this is gonna be an official. We're doing
let's
an
do an
official walk in the
official
walk.
This is the first one this season. I mean,
I think
Dan,
All right, well,
I just felt we needed it.
Well, listen, Dan, thank you. I'm surprised. I just want to make sure that before we get into that, because we usually wrap up our episodes with walking the walk. So before we get into this, because I'm dying to hear this. I just want to give I developed a little shout out, little brotherly love, real quick, not to one person, but to a profession that I found out was one of the most top 10 stressful positions in the professions,
Yes.
excuse me. One of the top 10 most stressful positions. Now, you look at top 10, you're going to see cops. Yeah, you're going to see firefighter. You understand that. Taxi driver made the top 10. Taxi drivers? Yes.
that is stressful.
No. Oh, for the year 2020, based on a stress score that they administered across the board, number 1 was enlisted military personnel, but number 10 is taxi drivers. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And then I did some research over. This is between 1994 and 2013. Oh, an average of 34 cab drivers were killed a year. Taxi drivers.
Listen,
dude,
did you see the movie Taxi Driver? It seemed very
but I thought it was the one guy. I didn't know it was I didn't know it was everybody. Listen, I just want to listen. I know a lot of people that drive cabs. We all need cabs. We take them when we drive drunk. They get us home safe. They save lives. Be nice to cab drivers, man. A little love to the profession.
This is why I actually kind of wanted to walk the walk, is because everybody has an insight about their profession. Like when I think about taxi drivers as an example, I hate being stuck in traffic. I hate it. Can you imagine being a taxi driver? They get stuck in traffic all the time. People are talking to them about all kinds of things. You're kind of expected to, I don't know, interact in a certain way, I guess, but like it sounds very stressful to me.
Eric, you know what? I never thought about it. And
it's
crazy because I think we don't give them enough props. And I'm glad you brought this up, because we don't, as a...
What taxi drivers?
Dude, I wouldn't... I feel uncomfortable when I get an Uber and I get in a car. Sometimes I'll put my headphones on. I'm all to myself. Sometimes they talkative. We'll talk and have a conversation. But at the same time, I'm like, dude, you don't know who the hell I am. You know what I'm saying? And so many of them gotten killed. Can you imagine going out to work every night and you don't know who you picking up? You don't know what person is getting in your vehicle. You don't know what's going to happen. So, yeah, now thinking about it, that is
I couldn't believe the list. It blew my mind. I'm sorry, Dan. I had to just want to give some love to the... No.
It goes right... I'm glad you did. They deserve it. But it goes right into what I'm saying. Why I wanted to do a walk the walk is that I really just think that people don't understand whatever professions they don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
It's true with like professional athletes. As kids, we dream about it. We're like, oh, it would be so great. And then, you find out what they really do. And there's actually a lot of stress to all kinds of things, whether it's the pressure or keeping up with, all the stretching and exercises you need to do, or keeping your body fit, or, even about the schedule. You never think about it. I would go to a baseball game on a Saturday and be like, this is great. That guy was working that day. Like it's, you never factor in other people. So I just wanted to give, a little bit of an insight into what things are like for me as a therapist. There are some ways in which it is an absolutely fantastic job. It's incredibly rewarding. Generally speaking, I love the people that I'm working with. I make a big difference in their lives. They generally are very grateful to me. It even pays pretty well. There's all kinds of things about it. I set my own hours. There's tons of great stuff. But there are stresses to it. And some of the stresses that I wanted to highlight, and I do this not just for myself, but to help us think about other jobs. Think about other jobs. Put yourself in their shoes. So for me, as an example, my goal is to help people feel good, feel better. And so much of the time, they're coming to me and they don't feel good. And they don't feel better. And to keep up your own optimism about that it can get better when they're bringing so much doubt and worry all the time, that can be hard. Now, when I say that, I'm not saying to patients out there, it's your responsibility to not do that. Absolutely not. Do what you do. But as a therapist, it can feel like a big responsibility. And the responsibility doesn't just stop there. Sometimes it comes in this form. When somebody starts working with me, therapy can be a very long process. And I'm happy to get connected with them. I'm happy to do the work. But sometimes, and today was even one of those times where I was like, I was so busy, one thing after the next. And it's a job where you got to be at your best pretty much all the time. If you're not at your best at a given time, it really sucks for that person. So I take my responsibility very seriously, and it makes it, it's part of the good part of the job that it means something. But the fact that it means something all the time can feel like a lot of pressure. And then when you mount up all the people that you're seeing and you're thinking, I got to be good for all these people. And not only do I have to be good for all these people, I got to be good for all these people, possibly for the rest of their lives, because people get very attached to their therapists. They want to continue working with them. And it just makes it so that in a way that I think people wouldn't really think about, there are stresses. The ways that people do tend to think about these stresses are like, oh, how can you listen to this stuff all day? You know what? That's not a stress at all. I love doing that. I love listening to people. I'm interested in people. I'm interested in like what makes things go the way they go. Not only that, but I'm in a position, especially with the mind-body stuff, where I'm an expert in it. So people are actually listening to me about things. People like to be listened to. All the stuff you'd expect to be stressful, I don't think is. Not as much, at least not for me. But some of the things that are stressful are things that you may not think about if you don't put yourself in the shoes of the other person. And so the longevity of it, the responsibility of it, the responsibility of each moment, these are the kinds of things that I think people wouldn't necessarily get. And I'm not saying it as a complaint at all. I love what I do. I wouldn't change it. Although I have built in other things I do, including this show and things like that, that allow me to have different parts of myself shine. But I think it's really important when we think about what's stressful at work, that part of the stress is that nobody understands what you do. Nobody gets it, except for the people who do it.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Eric brought up the cab drivers, and now listening to you now I feel your stress at work, Dr. Dan. Because there's days, they say we have on and off days. There's days that we're on and there's days that we're off. As a therapist, when you're having an off day, are you really, being the best therapist ever? And another question I have for you was, when people come to you and they give you their doubts and all their problems and everything else, how do you turn it off before you step out of that room and go back to your reality? And does it mess your head up as a therapist to hear other people's problems?
It can, and then meanwhile, you might have another session right after it. So that's one of the reasons we tend to space it out, just like a couple minutes at least, 10 minutes in between. You got to recollect yourself. But there are days where it infiltrates, who I am. And a huge one for me, just from a personal stress standpoint, is that people have to bring a lot of their difficult emotions to a therapy process, because where else are they supposed to bring it? That's what they're supposed to work on. But it's funny, I was never someone, I was a kid who hated when people were mad at me. Hated it. And so therapy does involve a certain amount of people pleasing, I think, in a way, where I'm there to help. I'm there to please in a lot of ways. But at the same time, I have a job where I have to help people look at some hard things. And so it's an art form that you have to work on over time that I'm much more comfortable with now. And I have a much better way of doing it. But sometimes you have to bring up things that they don't like, and then they'll get mad at you. And typically speaking, therapists don't like people being mad at them. Maybe nobody does, really. But therapists, I would say, are a group of people that, generally speaking, are people pleasers and do not want people to be mad at them. When people get really mad at me in the work, and then I've got to stay therapeutic. That's one of the hardest parts for me, especially if they really are trying to get under my skin, which happens. Does happen.
Do most of them, I'm sorry to cut you off. When someone gets mad at you at work, right? Because sometimes it does. The truth hurts sometimes. You know, you got to bring out whatever it is that is bothering you. Do you feel that when they come back, do they apologize? Do they see it? Does it take for you to actually slap the truth in somebody's face where it hurts and gets mad, and then they go home and be like, yo, this dude is right, you know?
Typically, particularly if I did my job well, yes, they do see it. And it's not that I would be looking for an apology necessarily. What I'm really looking for is, are they making gains? Because if I'm going to spend my time doing that kind of work, I want to know that it's making a difference. And what I find is, typically speaking, yes, they do see it. If you're doing your job well as a therapist, that's part of what is meant to be, you know, it's part of what is meant to be done. It's another reason that I love the mind-body work that I do, though. In a way, I gravitated away from traditional therapy partly because of the stress of traditional therapy. The expectations that were there, the limitations that were there, the expectation to have a persona. Like, there's a lot of pressure to be a typical therapist. I refuse. I'm not going to do that. I really didn't like it. It wedged me into a corner. It made me feel like I was supposed to be a certain way. I did not like there's an idea in therapy that as a therapist, you're not supposed to disclose things. Well, okay, I understand you're not supposed to spend the session on you. That makes sense. You're not supposed to say things that might make the patient uncomfortable or not something they would want to hear. I get all that. But wedging me into a corner and saying I can't be me, that was a problem for me. And the mind-body work has freed me up to be a more active therapist. Disclosure is actually an important part of it that helps people to trust you more. I've grown as a therapist from it. So I think it's a thing. I don't know how useful this walking the walk honestly will be for people. I hope it is, but I think it's at least interesting as an insight into what it's like, and I think it sheds light on the fact that it's really true of every profession. You got to try to put yourself in their shoes and think what it would be like. There's a lot of stress you don't know about.
It's like that friend that you have that always calls you complaining about shit. You know, and you're like, oh my God. And they call you and you're like, I'm not going to hear this shit right now. You don't answer the call. But as a therapist, you can't, you know, it's like you see somebody walking in. Oh, here comes Eric again. I don't want to, you know what I'm saying? So it is crazy.
Wait a minute. Therapists aren't supposed to do that. Every one of mine did. As soon as I showed it, they're like, oh,
you know,
this guy. All right. Come on in, loser. No, I mean, Eric, you know.
No. But I do give you props, Dr. Dan. I do give you props because I'm one of those people, man. If Eric was to call me with something that was bothering him, some way, somehow, that stress that he's had, I'm gonna feel, because you know I'm an emotional, intelligent person.
That's right.
We know that.
Yeah. So, we know that.
So I'm gonna.
Well, do you think you are? I'm kidding.
You know what it is. No, but I think you also brought up a good, like, sometimes we don't realize it is a lot of pressure when you're the person that someone's relying on for their mental health and wellness, or at least they're perceiving that it depends on you, when you know, of course, it's going to come from them.
Sure.
But it's a lot of pressure.
Think about suicidal ideation as an example.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to take their own lives. Absolutely not. And especially not if it's on my watch. But essentially, that's what's happening. It is on my watch. Obviously, I can't control everything that's going to happen, but I do want to make sure they have a very good interaction with me. Those were some of the most stressful things for me. And that's another reason I gravitated towards the mind-body work, because it gave me a sort of more circumscribed set of things I'm supposed to do. And that means I don't need to be responsible for everything. There is a way in which therapists sometimes can be looked at as they're responsible for everything.
Right.
And even if somebody did, God forbid, commit suicide, who would they come blaming for it? Quite possibly the therapist. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's crazy. I think to do like a quick recap on like the whole small businesses and how people need to, you know, seek for mental health. I think we need more shows like this. You know, to me, this show right here that we have could help a lot of people open up and say, okay, you know what, I need help. Before this show, I never admitted to anyone that I would see a therapist. You know, I saw a therapist one time with my ex-wife. We went to a couples therapy. You know, and Dr. Dan, I'm not gonna lie to you, I hated that lady. I walked out of there so mad because I felt like it was like badging, like, oh, Edgar, you do, and I'm like, dude, but she doesn't, and that's how I went. I went 2 times to these sessions, and every time I walked out more mad. And now I'm seeing it, like, you know what? Sometimes the truth hurts, man. You know.
Okay,
you gotta,
but in your defense, there's also unfortunately there's a lot of crappy therapists out there who take stuff out on the wrong people. Mm-hmm. You got to think about that too. And I remember actually I had a friend who she was in couples therapy. She's a lesbian, so she was there with her wife, and she said I came out of that and I just thought, man, I feel so bad for her. She took a beating in that session. And then she talked to her wife later, and her wife said, I just felt so bad for you. You took a beating in that session. So it's really funny.
So they both felt the same way.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that therapy done well ultimately shouldn't leave anybody feeling beaten or bashed, but it also is challenging. It is meant to help people grow, and I totally agree with you, Edgar, that this show, one of the reasons I love doing it, in addition to hanging out with you guys, is that we're, I think, doing something that can be quite useful, which is just bringing out the topic of how do we talk to each other, and the fact that mental health is not something to hide at all. It's just, you know, there's been a stigma against it, but for no good reason.
We into the 2nd season, and I tell you, this show has helped me. This show has been my therapy. You know, I'm hanging out with you guys every week. You know, that's been my therapist, and now I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to say it. I'm not afraid to say I have mental health. I'm not afraid to say that I suffer from depression. And yeah, I realize it. I realize when I'm getting an anxiety attack, when I get a panic attack. I'm realizing all these things, but the old Edgar would never admit those things. The old Edgar will feel those things and be like, no, hell no. Nobody gonna see this weakness out of me. So that's how this show has helped me. And I hope that to everyone viewing and listening that it helps you as well. You know, it helps you find someone to talk to and open up, because that's the only way we all gonna help each other, really, if you think about it, you know?
And that 6% who responded that they feel no stress at work at all, I want you to call or write us, because we want to know who you are, because we're going to find you.
Yeah, you just made stress for all the rest of us.
I can't think of one.
Because now I'm so stressed to figure out why they are not stressed that it's stressing me out. So I need to know.
Like somebody would say, "Oh, baseball player got the best job in the world." You
know, no. I'm going to find him. I'm finding him. We're going to find that.
Too.
We're going to find that 6%. I'm telling you right now. And if you have any stress, work related, home related, just talk, fellas. That's what we want. We just want everybody to talk. Talk to a friend. Talk to a family member. Talk to a professional. Just talk to somebody. Don't keep it to yourself.
And like Eric said, you could call 311, 411. You know, just
there's services in every major city, every small county. There's a number to call. Don't be afraid to call it. There will always be someone there to answer. Reach out.
Or message me, and I'll send you Dr. Dan's number.
Now we see why I'm stressed.
Yeah, man.
Well, thank you, brothers. I think this is once again a good one. You know, it's crazy that I know that these episodes are good because the minute they come to an end, I wish they didn't. I wish we could keep on talking. I wish we could like get into it some more. So that's how I know we're good, and eventually we will touch up on it again. But it's always a pleasure to, you know, be with you guys. Thank you to the viewers. Please comment down below. But I want to know what the 6% is as well. And like Eric said, man, just talk. That's all we need. Talk it out, and let's become better men, yo. So anything else you want to say, Eric?
No. Just love talking to you guys as always. Look forward to next time.
That's right. So, Dr. Dan, as always, take us out.
I'll take us out. It was great talking with you guys, as usual. If you haven't already, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, hit like if you like what you're hearing, and put your comments below, and we'll get back to you personally.
Yes.
Brothers in arms, redefining machismo since yesterday.
Am I emotionally
Am I
intelligent?
emotionally intelligent? Do I even know what that means? Are you trying to say that something about me is not emotionally intelligent?
Why
How
do you
dare
sound
you.
like Antonio Banderas?
How dare you insult me and not acknowledge my emotional intelligence?